The fall of Earth. The sky burned. Flaming wreckage of Earth's last warships tumbled from orbit, casting a crimson glow over the shattered ruins of Terra Prime. The once proud capital city lay in smoldering ruins, its skyscrapers reduced to skeletal remains. Zelnari warships loomed above like silent gods, their sleek, obsidian hulls reflecting the devastation below. Humanity's last stand had crumbled. Captain Elias Rourke knelt behind the wreckage of a fallen gunship, rifle in hand, his body covered in dust and blood. His breathing was ragged, his pulse a steady drumbeat in his ears. Around him, the few surviving soldiers of the 12th Defense Battalion clung to the shadows, their faces grim. They had fought until their weapons overheated, until their ammo ran dry. Now, survival was all they had left. A deep, resonant voice echoed through the ruined cityscape. Humans of Terra Prime, the voice declared in perfect English, "Your war is over. Your world is ours." Rourke clenched his teeth as the Zelnari broadcast filled the airwaves. The warlord Vexon's voice was calm, almost bored. The Zelnari had never seen humans as worthy adversaries, only as an obstacle to be eradicated. From his vantage point, Rourke could see them now, tall, sinewy beings with smooth, dark blue skin and piercing silver eyes. They moved with unsettling precision, their armor shifting with a chitinous click as they surveyed the destruction. The Zelnari prided themselves on efficiency, and tonight they had executed their conquest with brutal perfection. A squad of them stalked through the ruins, seeking any survivors. The fallen bodies of civilians and soldiers alike littered the streets, and any signs of movement were met with merciless plasma fire. "We have lost," one of Rourke's soldiers whispered. Rourke ignored him, gripping his rifle tighter. Losing the battle didn't mean losing the war. He had seen this before. Alien conquerors who thought humanity would kneel after a single defeat. The Zelnari didn't understand humans. They saw surrender as inevitable, submission as a certainty. But humans weren't built that way. Rourke tapped his communicator, a private frequency still active despite the enemy's jamming signals. Survivors report in. A few voices crackled through the static. Scattered, wounded, but alive. That was enough. Rourke glanced at the ruins, at the enemy forces moving with overconfidence, at the shattered remains of a world they believed was conquered. A grim smile touched his lips. They think they've won. Let them believe it. The war wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Rourke pressed his back against the rubble, signaling his team to move. The time for open battle was over. Now it was time for something humans had perfected over centuries. Guerrilla warfare. As he disappeared into the ruins, the last words of the Zelnari broadcast echoed in the distance. The age of humanity is over. But Rourke knew the truth. It was just beginning. The unseen war begins. The Zelnari believed Earth was theirs. For weeks, their occupation forces patrolled the ruined cities, their warships hovered in the skies, and their soldiers hunted down the last remnants of human resistance. The alien conquerors moved with mechanical efficiency, cataloging resources, dismantling human infrastructure, and preparing to repurpose Earth for their empire. But they had made one fatal mistake. They assumed humanity would fight like every other species they had conquered, directly, predictably, and ultimately, hopelessly. Captain Elias Rourke knew better. Deep in the ruins of Terra Prime, Rourke crouched inside an abandoned maintenance tunnel, his small band of survivors gathered around him. Their faces were hollow with exhaustion, but their eyes burned with determination. These weren't just soldiers. Some were engineers, hackers, former police officers, even civilians who had refused to kneel. Every one of them had lost everything, and that made them dangerous. A holographic map flickered in front of them, displaying a network of enemy supply lines, patrol routes, and weak points. Rourke tapped a section of the map, highlighting a Zelnari communications outpost. "We're not here to fight their war," he said, his voice steady. "We're here to make sure they don't sleep, don't eat, don't breathe without wondering when we'll strike next." His team nodded. They understood. The war in the skies was lost, but the war in the shadows had just begun. Strike and vanish. That night, the first attack came. A Zelnari convoy, transporting high-ranking officers, rolled through the streets, their insectoid walkers scanning for threats. They detected nothing. Their sensors showed an empty road, their security systems untouched. Then the first explosion hit. A hidden charge beneath the pavement ripped through the lead vehicle, flipping it into the air. Plasma bolts rained down from unseen snipers, cutting through the enemy ranks before they had a chance to react. The survivors scrambled for cover, but before they could return fire, the attackers were gone, vanishing into the ruins like ghosts. By the time reinforcements arrived, all they found were charred wrecks and a single message scrawled across a ruined wall in red paint. Rule number 1: never underestimate a human with nothing left to lose. The Zelnari's dilemma. High strategist Vexon watched the reports flood in with growing irritation. The resistance was insignificant in number, yet their strikes were unpredictable, devastating, and, most infuriatingly, effective. His advisors recommended increasing patrols, deploying more drones, tightening control. But Vexon had seen this before. His empire had conquered 100 worlds, crushed 100 rebellions. This was no different. They are insects clinging to the corpse of their world, he sneered. Let them scurry. It changes nothing. But as the weeks passed, the attacks escalated. Supply depots exploded. Security codes were hacked. Misinformation spread like wildfire, making the Zelnari question every order, every transmission. The humans fought with no pattern, no logic, only relentless, unpredictable defiance. And deep in the ruins, Elias Rourke watched the chaos unfold, a grim smile on his face. The Zelnari still didn't understand, but they would. The trap is set. The Zelnari were unraveling. Reports flooded in from across the occupied zones, supply lines in flames, key officers assassinated, entire patrol squads vanishing without a trace. High strategist Vexon had deployed more troops, more surveillance, more drones, but nothing stopped the bleeding. Captain Elias Rourke watched it all unfold from a hidden command center beneath the ruins of Terra Prime. Every Zelnari overreaction, every panicked troop deployment, every shift in their supply chains, it all fed into his plan. He wasn't just fighting them, he was leading them. And they had no idea. The bait, Project Thanatos. Rourke tapped into a Zelnari relay station, feeding a carefully fabricated transmission into their network. The message was intercepted immediately. Transmission intercepted. Thanatos protocol confirmed. Human superweapon located. Threat level, extreme. It was a lie, but the Zelnari didn't know that. Rourke had crafted the deception with surgical precision. Leaked reports, fake security logs, encrypted messages that accidentally made it into enemy databases. The Zelnari, desperate to end the insurgency, took the bait. Within hours, scout ships flew over the designated location, a long-abandoned subterranean bunker deep within the wastelands. Vexon himself ordered an all-out assault. Eliminate all resistance. Secure the weapon. The trap springs shut. The Zelnari elite forces stormed the bunker, expecting to find humanity's last, desperate hope. A doomsday device, a final act of defiance. Instead, they found nothing but darkness. Then the lights flickered. A low, mechanical hum filled the air. The doors slammed shut. In orbit, the Zelnari fleet prepared to launch orbital bombardments, but their command systems suddenly locked up. Firewalls collapsed. Automated defenses turned on their own ships. A virus, hidden within the fake Thanatos data, spread through the Zelnari's entire battle network. And then came the EMP. A pulse rippled outward from the bunker, frying Zelnari technology within a 100-mile radius. Soldiers' weapons went dead. Drones crashed. Tanks became nothing more than useless hunks of metal. That was when the real attack began. Human fighters, hiding in the ruins, struck from every direction. Explosives detonated. Captured Zelnari weapons, now reprogrammed, unleashed a storm of plasma fire on their former masters. The once invincible invaders, cut off from their command, fell in droves. The turning point. Vexon, watching from his flagship, felt something unfamiliar crawl into his chest. Doubt. Humanity had no fleet, no advanced technology, no empire to call upon. Yet somehow they were winning. Impossible, he hissed. This is impossible. But deep in the ruins, Elias Rourke stood over a captured Zelnari officer, rifle in hand. He leaned in close, his voice quiet but lethal. You think this is about Earth? He smirked. We weren't fighting to save our planet. We were fighting to take yours. And for the first time, the Zelnari feared. You overlooked rule number 1. The Zelnari Empire had never lost a war. Until now, the once invincible fleet lay in disarray. Ships drifted in orbit, powerless, their systems crippled by the virus humans had unleashed. On the ground, their elite forces, cut off, disarmed, and leaderless, were either captured or slaughtered in the burning remains of Terra Prime. High strategist Vexon stood in the wreckage of his command center, his dark blue skin marred by soot and blood. His forces were in full retreat. Entire battalions had gone silent. He had underestimated them. He had underestimated humans. Across from him, Captain Elias Rourke holstered his plasma rifle and stepped forward. The last of the Zelnari guards had fallen. The warlord was alone now. This is impossible, Vexon growled. Your species was broken. Rourke wiped the blood from his brow and let out a dry chuckle. Broken doesn't mean beaten. The final move. Vexon's mandibles clicked in frustration. Even if you've won here, it means nothing. The Zelnari Empire spans 1,000 worlds. You bought yourselves time. Nothing more. Rourke smirked. You still don't get it, do you? With a flick of his wrist, he activated a stolen Zelnari datapad, streaming a live feed onto the cracked holotable. Vexon's silver eyes widened. Revolts. Across the galaxy. Uprisings on planets the Zelnari had long thought pacified. Explosions in their industrial sectors. Battleships hijacked by former slaves. Entire colonies declaring independence. We were never fighting to save Earth, Rourke said. We were fighting to show the galaxy that the Zelnari can be beaten. The strategist's breath came in ragged gasps. His empire, his perfect, untouchable empire, was burning. Rourke leaned in close. You overlooked rule number 1. Vexon stared at him, hatred and disbelief warring in his expression. And what is that? Rourke grinned. Never underestimate a human with nothing left to lose. The dawn of New Age. The warlord fell to his knees, the weight of his failure crushing him. Rourke didn't fire. He didn't have to. The Zelnari were finished. Across the galaxy, species that had once suffered under the Empire's rule rose up. Inspired by humanity's defiance, they took up arms, fueled by the simple knowledge that the unstoppable conquerors weren't unstoppable after all. Earth had fallen, but in its destruction, humanity had ignited something far greater than survival. They had started a revolution. Rourke turned away from the broken warlord and activated his communicator. All units, stand by for final cleanup. The galaxy is waking up, and we've got a lot of work to do. As the first rays of dawn broke over the ruins of Terra Prime, the war was over, and humanity had won.